This is an ABC News special report.
Good day, everyone. I'm Paula Ferris. We are coming on the air right now with some breaking news. Just moments ago, President Trump tweeting that he has asked his national security advisor, John Bolton, to resign. Now, this news follows the failed plan for peace talks with the Taliban at Camp David to end the long-going war in Afghanistan. It is America's longest war. Bolton was the leading voice against this particular deal, putting him right at odds with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. The president also tweeting, quote, "I informed John Bolton last night that his services are no longer needed at the White House. I disagreed strongly with many of his suggestions, as did others in the administration." Now, a White House briefing was scheduled for later today involving Bolton, Secretary Pompeo, and Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin. This was the Trump administration's third national security advisor, and the president thanking Bolton for his service, saying that he will be naming a new national security advisor next week. We want to get right to ABC's senior national correspondent, Terry Moran, who is in D.C. for us right now. Terry, did this come out of nowhere?
Well, no, this has long been a tension, as you noted, between President Trump, who came to power telling his voters, telling the United States that he wanted to end these long, long wars, and John Bolton, for his generation, the hero of the hawks and conservatives and neoconservatives who advocated a very aggressive projection of American military power around the world. They were at odds from the beginning, but the timing is a surprise, certainly. And John Bolton already responding on Twitter to the president's statement there. President Trump saying he asked for John Bolton's resignation. Bolton has just tweeted, "I offered to resign last night." And President Trump said, quote, "Let's talk about it tomorrow." So the usual drama in the Trump administration. But this is a major shakeup, no question about it. We are told that from people close to Ambassador Bolton, he was the UN ambassador, that he is proud that no bad deals, quote unquote, no bad deals were made while he was national security advisor. A sign there that he opposed President Trump's effort to make a deal with the Taliban, one that President Trump wanted to do and culminate at Camp David until he canceled that earlier this week. So this is no doubt a major shakeup in the Trump White House, and one that now opens the door for a different direction in that revolving door at the National Security Council.
Yeah, definitely a rocky relationship, Terry. And again, the third national security advisor, he's preceded by H.R. McMaster as well as Mike Flynn. I want to bring in ABC's chief global affairs correspondent, Martha Raddatz. And Martha, Terry just touched on it. The timing of this is very precarious because President Trump has sent a diplomatic opening with both Iran and North Korea, and now he fires his national security advisor.
Exactly, and President Trump knew all along where John Bolton stood on a lot of these international issues. He is a hardliner. John Bolton was at odds with him over Iran, over China, over North Korea. And North Korea, we just had once again last night a test fire of short-range missiles. That's been at least 8 rounds of test-fired missiles since July, when President Trump, in what amounted to little more than a photo op, met Kim Jong-un on the demilitarized zone that divides North and South Korea. But I think the big question now is who comes next. Does President Trump want someone who strictly agrees with him, or will he get some sort of differing opinion? And given what just happened to John Bolton, it may be someone who is more closely aligned to how President Trump views these foreign policy issues.
And Martha, any ideas on who that could be? Again, this is his third national security advisor. We've seen Mike Flynn, H.R. McMaster come and go through that office. Any ideas?
No ideas at this point. But again, I think President Trump is clearly looking for someone who thinks in the same way he does. John Bolton was very much hardline, don't just trust, verify, was constantly pushing the president on these issues and butting heads. So my prediction is it will be someone a little more in line with the president's thinking.
Someone aligned with the president. Martha, thank you. Kira Phillips also in D.C. for us. And Kira, you're at the White House. What are sources telling you about how this all went down?
Well, I think Martha really hit it when she said that hardlined that Bolton and the president butted heads. You know, over the past year, I've been talking with White House sources that have told me that their relationship was very contentious. I followed up with those same White House officials, those sources, and Paula, them telling me that Bolton actually has felt undermined by the president, and also that the president has embarrassed him from time to time. So when you hear Bolton described as a hawk, this is somebody that if he feels embarrassed, if he feels undermined, he's not going to want to stay in this position necessarily. Paula.
All right, Kira, Terry, and Martha, thank you for your reporting again. Just to recap, President Trump has announced that his national security advisor, John Bolton, is out after just over a year and a half on the job. This is his third national security advisor. We're going to return now to regular programming. We will continue coverage on ABC News Live, our 24/7 streaming channel available on abcnews.com and on all of your devices. Also, we'll have a complete wrap-up on World News Tonight with David Muir. I'm Paula Ferris in New York. Have a great day, everyone.
All right, guys, and we continue coverage. Breaking news, you just heard Paula say there that President Trump has fired the national security advisor, John Bolton. He has officially resigned. He's the third to hold this position. And in a tweet just earlier, the president wrote, "I informed John Bolton last night that his services are no longer needed at the White House. I disagreed strongly with many of his suggestions, as did others in the administration. And therefore, I asked John for his resignation," which was given to me this morning. I thank John very much for his service. I will be naming a new national security advisor next week. And John Bolton also responded to that tweet, him saying, "I offered to resign last night, and President Trump said, let's talk about it tomorrow." So I want to bring in ABC's senior national correspondent, Terry Moran. Terry, good to see you. If you can just break down, obviously the timing of this is a bit of a surprise.
Well, this was a long time coming, but there's no doubt that it comes as a surprise. It apparently came as a surprise to John Bolton. President Trump saying he asked for Bolton's resignation. Bolton saying that he offered it last night, and Trump said, we'll talk about it in the morning. It looks like he learned that he was out of the White House through the tweet. And that is typical of the drama of this administration. But more substantively, this is a major shakeup for the Trump team and the Trump national security vision. John Bolton came into that office, that very important national security advisor office, as one of the leading hawks in the country, a hero to conservatives and neoconservatives. He often argued for an aggressive projection of American military power around the world. He was one of the prime backers of the Iraq War long before 9/11 even. And recently he's been very hawkish on Iran. Confronting Iran over its ambitions and nuclear ambitions in the Middle East. But he never got along with President Trump, who came into office, ran on ending these endless wars. And in fact, it has been said that one of the instructions he gave to his original national security team at the start of his administration, no more wars. So these two men were at odds from the beginning, and it looks like it didn't end well.
Yeah, so Terry, can you just talk a little bit about this meeting that was supposed to happen? Bolton was actually against the idea of meeting with the Taliban and withdrawing U.S. forces, and that put him at odds with Pompeo.
Exactly. I think that is the trigger here, Kimberly. So the president has made no secret that he wants to do a deal with the Taliban to get the U.S. out of Afghanistan. Now, American national security experts and people in the Pentagon as well don't want to withdraw hastily. But the president saw the opportunity to close that deal in a theatrical and spectacular way with peace talks at Camp David. And that was very difficult for John Bolton to swallow. Camp David, the place where, as Congresswoman Liz Cheney pointed out, that was where the United States originally planned its response to 9/11. And no Taliban official should ever go there, she said. That said, John Bolton didn't like the deal that was coming down. The president determined to end the war in Afghanistan as far as America is concerned. That those two are at loggerheads, and it looks like the breaking point came when the president disclosed he wanted that secret peace talks deal done at Camp David itself. And it looks like that is one of the final straws that broke the camel's back here. And John Bolton is out in part because of that.
All right, I want to bring in ABC's John Karl, who's on the phone with us. John, I just want to ask you, you've been covering President Trump for this entire administration. What does it mean to have the third national security advisor leave the White House?
Well, it is utterly without precedent to have this much turnover at such a critical position. 3 national security advisors in not a little over 2.5 years. It's really an incredible symbol of the kind of the rapid change and lack of stability you've seen at the White House senior staff. Such an important job. But I got to tell you, Bolton has been at odds with the president for a long time. This was a rough position from the beginning. Bolton had been cut out of the loop on many significant major initiatives of the president's. Perhaps most significantly, the overture to North Korea. Bolton, if you remember when the president made his dramatic step at the DMZ over onto the North Korean side of the border, where was John Bolton? This is a major meeting of the president and the leader of North Korea. John Bolton was actually in Mongolia at the time. He didn't even go along with the president. So he was at odds with him on that. Obviously, as you've just talked to Terry, he was at odds with the whole approach to Afghanistan, not just the negotiating with the Taliban, but also troop levels. He was somebody who found himself frequently on the outside in some of the major initiatives that this president has done in terms of national security and foreign policy.
And John, before we let you go, what does it mean when you can't disagree with the president?
Well, I mean, there is. I think that this is a president who actually, perhaps to his credit, does have people around him who disagree with him. Some of his major policy initiatives. Bolton was exhibit 1 on this. But the president also needs to have somebody around who believes in what he is doing. And when you have a national security advisor who truly, in his deepest convictions, does not believe in the president's most important foreign policy initiatives, that's a problem.
All right, John Karl right there on the phone with us. And Terry, who do we think? Oh, Terry is gone as well. So, guys, you've been watching ABC News Live. If you're joining us right now, right before we go, the breaking news was that President Trump has fired the National Security Advisor, John Bolton. He has officially resigned. So, ABC News Live, thank you for joining us.